r/ask Reddit. What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? History teacher disappeared in the night with the French teacher's wife, and the other French teacher made national news for sexually abusing boys. Well, French is the language of love. Yeah, I can imagine speaking French was a big part of the attraction. Probably lots of Français flirting, which led to more time spent together and eventually a full-on relationship. And the rest? Well, the rest is history. Probably the time a girl gave a guy a BJ in the bathroom. The guy filmed it and sent it to his friend. His friend sent all around the school. Eventually the police had to get involved because the one guy was guilty of distribution of child pornography. My high school guidance counselor ducked a science teacher's wife and everyone knew about it. They got a divorce. Both teachers still work at the same school to this day, and students will never ever let it go. The story has been handed down from year to year. Kids are brutal. The lunch lady was having sex with students and buying them alcohol. A kid in my senior year short story class, who sat directly behind me, was charged with the stabbing, beheading and burning of one of his friend's drug dealer. I remember the day like it was yesterday, sitting in my short story class when my teacher came in tears because she just heard the news. Students didn't find out about it until later. I actually have a friend who testified in his trial because he purchased the murdering materials at the hardware store she worked at. Crazy, man. Did some googling. Is this in Michigan? Sure is. When in middle school, the school forced us to give our phones to the vice principal, and they would stay there locked during the day. They got stolen. Around 120 smartphones. Edit. Changed president to principal. Please don't bully me anymore, Mayo. This locking up can backfire. One year we got together and all agreed to set an alarm on our phones for the same time, at max volume. After that they just said the phones had to be turned off, though. Nope, should have set them to 5 minutes apart so they don't go quiet at the same time. The Harlem Shake was a craze. We had an array teacher who desperately enjoyed being the popular teacher, so he got in on the craze. Invited 40 pupils from my year to his classroom at lunch and filmed his own Harlem Shake video, which in itself wouldn't have been against safeguarding rules. Thing is, he also taught sex ed, so everyone got into his cupboard before the start of the video for props. The video was essentially a group of 14-year-olds throwing dildos and condoms around the room while he, of his own accord, grinded on a life-size cutout of the poop. He was suspended under investigation for half a year but surprisingly kept his job. He was a lot more professional when he returned. Why the poop? Why did he have a life-size pope to begin with? And what was he demonstrated? How to get excommunicated from the church. Edit. Thank you for my first silver and most upvoted comment, kind strangers. First week of high school. Pay class. The first section was swim. Wasn't my class, but the class after. This kid was playing a game with his friends in the water, who could hold their breath the longest. He was going up for air and hit head on the pointy part of the gutter, and never made it to the surface. Friends didn't notice. Teacher didn't notice. Eventually football players coming back to the locker rooms noticed. He ended up dying. Teacher was fired, although I wouldn't fully blame him as he was attending and teaching kids who didn't know how to swim or weren't strong swimmers. One adult for over 60 kids? That's the school's fault. I understand the teacher not noticing, but the friends who were directly competing with the kid didn't notice? Must have thought he was pretty darn good at breath holding. The 30ish theater teacher ran off with a recent grad. I was kind of pals with the student during a play the spring before the scandal, and she hosted the cast party where in retrospect, they seemed a little cozier than appropriate. As much as I'm dying for the inside scoop, I can't imagine friending her on social media and asking, so what was up with you and Mr. ? During middle school a few kids sold weed and someone that bought some smoked it in the building, which was just stupid. The kid that sold it to him didn't want to get in trouble, so he pulled the fire alarm so people wouldn't find the kid. We all got to go home afterwards. Honestly, that's some pretty quick thinking. Obviously not very responsible, but the kid that pulled the fire alarm had some pretty sharp self-preservation instincts. When the religion teacher cheated on her husband with the math teacher. Long story short, the principal got arrested for hiding cameras in the bathroom. This was back in elementary. He was a total ducking creep. The caretaker killed 2 local girls and hid them in the school. He tried using the clay kiln to burn them. He later dumped them a few miles away. A girl died in the pool during an event at the school. The swim teacher was blamed and was prosecuted. The girl who died was at my sister's class. Both were 7 at the time. That happened over 10 years ago. But the parents haven't had another child since. She was their only kid. Sophomore year, a girl in my grade passed on a solid yellow up a hill, hit a family in a car and killed both parents and one of the kids. A week later she's back at school in a brand new pickup truck and never faced any sort of trial or anything. Her parents were extremely large farmers in the small rural town and had influence in the local court systems, I'm sure. Oh, did I mention she excitedly showed off her new truck when she came back? Duck you, Taylor. The entire 11th grade of my school visits a concentration camp each year, and 2 years ago someone brought weed, so 20 students were expelled and 15 suspended. Even the police got involved. Weed isn't legal yet here. How did 35 people get in trouble? How much weed did he bring? Maybe no one would rat on who brought it. Kid made a chlorine bomb and threw it in the trash can at lunch. Lockdown. Bomb squad. Every single kid and faculty member out on the field in 95 degrees weather for 2+ hours until parents could show up to pick up their kids. What the duck is wrong with people? This was middle school, so he got expelled and arrested after. 2 years later in high school he's back to school built like a ducking MMA fighter. Full beard and shaved head at 16. Nobody ever said shit to him or ducked with him in any way. A guy in year 10 made a statement that the more compact a group of people are, the higher the death toll would be in a shooting, and we were genuinely talking about shootings and somehow people mistook it that he was gonna do it. It was a joke and everyone was playing along at first. Cut to 11 months later, he was in year 11. The whole school knows. Rumors got out. The truth was beyond ducking twisted and changed to something different. Kids were actually scared to come in. Parents were pissed. Teachers were anxious. They had to search the kid. They kicked him out 9 days before he finished for good. Was still allowed to do exams but had to do separately from everyone else. The police were involved and it made the news, but the news article is complete fake and bullshit. He also wasn't allowed to prom. This was around 4-5 years ago. He told me he was doing a lot better now. He went to a better school for 6th form. He says whilst he has moved on with his life, he will never forgive the bastards. Also, we live in England and guns are much harder to get, especially to the average person who knows nothing about how to get guns. An overachieving student in my year went nuts and pooped in a bag in a teacher's classroom. She also thought she could run up trees. Turns out she didn't, end up skipping a few years and going to uni early like she was predicted to do. The balance of genius is on a very thin edge. A teacher was found having sex with a student on a table in the lunchroom. The student was in 8th grade and her parents knew about it. These are just getting more ducked up SMH. This kid was taking his GCSEs, important exams in England, until you get older and realize they mean duck all. Whilst at an exam, some kids got onto his phone, went onto his notes and found a 4,000 word document consisting of his sexual fantasies with other girls in his year. Clearly paid attention in English as there was some clever wordplay comparing his coke to some world famous landmarks. The screenshots found their way into a lot of group chats. There were about 20 odd screenshots. To put into context how long it was, and it basically acted as a vague repellent for the rest of his time at the school. Not that scandalous. A friend's stuff kept going missing, like books and pens. It didn't stop even after multiple complaints from him, and the teachers didn't really care. His mom screamed at the teachers and the principal did her own investigation and concluded that it was a boy who stole from that guy. The principal decided to call the male student's parents to talk to them. After a year, it turns out that the thief was a girl and she yeeted the guy's stuff out the window because the guy was bullying her. LOL, fair enough. My former high school got on the news for having a history teacher lie for 4 years about being a decorated war hero. Guy claimed to have not 1, but 2 Purple Hearts, among other things, and never even served a day in the military. Edit. I can't directly link to articles because of doxing. but I'm sure you can find it on Google. But it gets juicier. The truth came out because his ex-wife exposed him, sending evidence he was making it all up to local news stations and the school. Why'd she do it? The history teacher was having an affair with another teacher in my school. We had a lot of weird teachers at my school, but I think this story shows just how much the administration hardly vetted teachers. Like, holy shit. We also had a guidance counselor get the boot for being a racist, but that's another story that didn't get as much publicity. My religion teacher was relocated after rumors spread that he sexually harassed a female student and hit a male student. I never found out if those rumors were true, but I mean there had to be something because teachers don't just get relocated in the middle of a school year. He was an ass. I wouldn't put it past him. In Germany it's super hard to get fired as a teacher. I think you'd need a prison sentence to actually get fired. That's why he was only relocated. We had a computer teacher slash football assistant coach who was just blasted all day. Had so many DUIs he had to get rides to work, but was a cousin of the superintendent so he kept his job. Let's just say that when he crashed a student's car in the parking lot because he convinced them to let him borrow it, that was the beginning of the end of it. It was a small town. The scandal is that the super tried to cover it up by trying to convince the kid to take the heat for it. To no one's surprise, the kid was not convinced. They let him stay on a super for another 2 years. There was a kid whose girlfriend brought a knife into school and planned to kill herself in the bathroom. He knew her locker combination, so he took the knife and hid it in his so she wouldn't do it and wouldn't get busted. Someone snitched on him and he got expelled for having a knife on campus. Whole town was pissed. A male gym teacher diddling some girls volleyball players. Principal got fired for threatening teachers if they didn't produce enough A's and driving a grade inflation scandal. That and the usual drugs and such. One of the female gym teachers at my HS got arrested for doing drugs on campus. One girl literally kicked on a guy's balls so hard that he had to be hospitalized. The girl was 15. The boy was 11. And there were no actions because of lack of evidence. I remember seeing a new report of something similar. A pair of I think 15-year-old girls bullied a 10-year-old boy and kicked his balls till one of them popped. This happened between my sister and brother graduating, so it would have been 1996 or 1997. The HS Ag teacher started dating a student at some point. Everyone knew about it and the parents consented. Our HS was, and is, small enough to still participate in senior trips, and the AG teacher went along as a chaperone when his GF was a senior. They shared a hotel room, when I believe the student was still technically a 17-year-old minor. At the time I remember my parents being rather put off by it, but they still hired the guy as a summer farmhand. I don't remember if he was fired or stepped down, but by the time I made it to HS we had a different ag teacher. They got married and had a child, divorced maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Their kid goes to our HS now. I don't know why it wasn't a huge deal at the time, but no one really raised a stink or threatened to call the authorities. Today it feels like a case of grooming by a predatory farm boy. This girl accused a teacher, who had been there for over 40 years, of sexual assault right before her entrance exam. It was a really good private school, so you needed to take a test to be considered for admission. The accusations were investigated and were found completely unfounded almost immediately. I don't know what this girl was thinking. Like maybe she thought it was a way for her to get some leverage and improve her chances of getting in or something. What made the scandal even bigger was the actions of the school. They kept him in the dark for 2 months after the investigation was completed and were refusing to allow him back because of their insurance. Then a campaign was launched by a bunch of alums and he eventually got back to teaching. Until his death a few years ago. He was a great guy too. I had him for a political theory class and he was really nice. He and his wife, aside from having children of their own, took in foster kids all the time and he did a lot of other volunteer work. Sucks he had to go through all of that because of a lie. When I was in 3rd grade I believe, one of the principals at my school got arrested for disability fraud or something like that. Then when I was in the 7th grade, one of the teachers got arrested for being a pedophile. Seems like a common theme in this comment section, lol. My department lead allowed the baseball team to line up and she gave them all blowjobs. Happened years ago and confirmed by veteran co-workers I knew. Recently, Some of the boys that graduated years ago decided to inform the proper authorities. She was transferred to another school. Still works in the district. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.